The alarm screamed through every corridor of the human exploration ship. Horizon's Edge. Commander Jake Harrison ran toward the bridge, his boots hitting the metal floor with quick steps. Around him, crew members moved with practiced speed to their stations. "Report," Jake called out as he reached the command center. Captain Lisa Morgan stood near the main screen, her face calm but serious. "Unknown vessel approaching fast. It's massive, Jake. 3 times our size." Ryan Brooks looked up from his tactical station, fingers moving over the controls. "Captain, I'm reading weapon systems unlike anything in our database. Energy signatures are off the charts." Dr. Ben Carter, the ship's xenobiologist, moved closer to the screen. His eyes went wide as the approaching vessel came into view. "That design? I've seen similar patterns in the old galactic records. If I'm right, we're looking at a Zithkari warship." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew that name. The Zithkari Empire controlled half the known galaxy. They were the apex predators of space, a species so powerful that entire civilizations surrendered at the first sight of their ships. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. Kate Sullivan, the chief engineer, had moved to help with incoming signals. "They're hailing us, audio only." Lisa nodded. "Put it through." A deep, rumbling voice filled the bridge. The words were translated by the ship's computer, but the tone needed no translation. It was pure dominance. "Small vessel. You will submit immediately. Prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." Lisa looked around at her crew. She saw no fear in their faces, only determination. "Open a channel," she said. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Earthship Horizon's Edge. We come in peace and request diplomatic contact under galactic law." Long pause followed. Then came what sounded like harsh laughter. "Diplomatic contact? You are prey speaking to predators. There is no law between strong and weak. Prepare for boarding." The line went dead. Jake moved to Lisa's side. "Orders, Captain?" Lisa thought for a moment. "We follow standard first contact protocol. No weapons unless directly threatened. Ryan, keep scanning their ship. Look for anything that might help us understand them better." "Already on it," Ryan replied, his fingers never stopping their work on the console. Dr. Ben Carter stepped forward. "Captain, if these really are Zithkari, everything we know says they've never encountered a species that didn't immediately run or surrender. They might not know how to handle our response." Kate Sullivan called from her station. "Captain, there. Ship is moving into docking position. I'm reading massive energy signatures. These beings are physically powerful beyond anything we've encountered." Minutes later, the ship shook as the Zithkari vessel attached itself to their hull. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the corridors. They were coming through the airlock by force. Jake gathered the senior crew in the main corridor near the airlock. "Remember, we represent all of humanity here. Stay calm, stay professional." The airlock doors burst open with a crash that made the walls shake. What came through was beyond anything the humans had imagined. The first Zithkari warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in what looked like natural armor, dark and gleaming like polished stone. 4 arms moved with fluid power, each ending in claws that could easily tear through metal. Its head was elongated, with multiple eyes that glowed with an inner light. Behind the first came others, each as imposing as the last. They moved into the human ship like living tanks, their heavy steps making the floor vibrate. The largest of them stepped forward. When it spoke, the translator rendered its words, but the deep, threatening tone remained. "I am War Prime Vexthal of the Zithkari Empire. You will kneel and submit to our strength." The humans stood their ground. Lisa stepped forward, her hands open and visible. I am Captain Lisa Morgan. Welcome aboard our ship. We offer you our hospitality and hope for peaceful contact between our peoples." Vexthal's multiple eyes focused on her. The other Zithkari warriors looked confused. This was not the response they expected. "You do not kneel," Vexthal said slowly. "You do not show fear. This is unusual." Jake noticed something in the alien's voice. Beneath the threatening tone was genuine puzzlement. Dr. Ben Carter spoke up. "We understand you are powerful beings. We respect strength. But we also believe in communication and mutual understanding." One of the other Zithkari warriors, smaller than Vexthal, but still massive, stepped closer. Its translated voice carried confusion. "War Prime, these creatures, they are small, soft. They should be cowering. Why do they speak as equals?" Vexthal's eyes never left the humans. "Indeed, Sub-Commander Crixenal, this is most interesting." Kate Sullivan had been watching the aliens carefully. She noticed their body language, the way they moved. Despite their obvious power, there was something almost mechanical about their interactions. No cooperation, no supporting each other. Each one stood alone. Lisa sensed an opportunity. "Would you honor us by sharing a meal?" It's a human custom when meeting new friends. The word friends seemed to cause a stir among the Zithkari. They spoke to each other in their own language, quick and harsh sounds that the translator couldn't handle. Vexthal raised one of his forearms, and the others fell silent. "Meal? Friends? These are unknown concepts. But you interest us, small humans. We will observe your customs. Perhaps we will learn why you do not fear as you should." Ryan Brooks had been quietly scanning the Zithkari with his instruments. What he was seeing made no sense. These beings were incredibly strong. Their technology was advanced, but there were patterns in their behavior that seemed almost limited as the humans led their unexpected guests toward the ship's dining area. Jake caught Lisa's eye. She nodded slightly. They both understood that this first contact was unlike anything in human history. These weren't just aliens. They were the most powerful species in the galaxy, and somehow the humans had managed to confuse them. The real test was just beginning. The meal in the ship's dining area had been strange for everyone. The humans ate their simple food, while the Zithkari watched with growing confusion. The aliens didn't understand why the humans shared their portions, or why they talked and laughed. Together, War Prime Vexthal stood suddenly, his massive frame towering over the seated humans. "Enough observation. You will now face the trial of worth. All species must prove their strength before the Zithkari Empire." Captain Lisa Morgan looked up calmly. "What does this trial involve?" "Physical and mental challenges that separate the strong from the weak," Vexthal replied. "Most species break within hours. Those who survive earn the right to serve the Empire." Sub-Commander Crixenal stepped forward. "War Prime, perhaps we should simply take these humans as slaves. They are clearly too weak for proper trials." "Jake." Harrison stood up slowly. "We accept your trial, but we ask for one thing. Let us face it together as a crew." The Zithkari warriors looked at each other with confusion. Vexthal's multiple eyes focused on Jake. "Together? This makes no sense. Strength is individual. Each being fights alone." "Not where we come from," Lisa said firmly. "Humans are stronger when we work together." Vexthal made a sound that might have been laughter. "Impossible. Cooperation is weakness. But very well. We will test this strange idea of yours. It will make your failure more interesting to watch." The Zithkari separated the human crew into 3 groups and moved them to different parts of their massive ship. The alien vessel was dark and cold, built for individual warriors who needed no comfort or companionship. Jake found himself with Ryan Brooks and Tony Garcia. the ship's maintenance chief, in what looked like a mechanical nightmare. Broken machines filled the room, sparking and smoking. The air was thick and hard to breathe. A Zidkari guard spoke through a translator device. Repair all systems within 4 hours. Failure means death. You have no tools. Tony looked around the room and grinned. No tools? These guys don't know. Humans very well. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Good thing they didn't search us properly. What's the plan? Jake asked. Tony was already moving toward the nearest broken machine. We improvise. Ryan, I need you to track power flows. Jake, start sorting through that scrap pile. We're going to build what we need from what we have. Meanwhile, in another section of the ship, Dr. Amy Davis found herself with Kate Sullivan and Communications Officer Beth Turner. They were in a room with walls that kept changing color and shape. Strange sounds filled the air, growing louder and more disturbing. Psychological pressure test, Amy said calmly. She was the ship's psychologist and had dealt with stress before. They're trying to break our minds. Beth was focusing on the sounds, listening carefully. Amy, some of these aren't random. There's a pattern in the Zidkari vocalizations. I think they're talking to each other. Kate was studying the changing walls. These aren't just for show. There's technology here. If I can figure out how it works. She started running her hands along the wall surfaces. Amy nodded. Good. Stay focused on your tasks. Don't let the sensory overload win. We've trained for this kind of stress. In the third location, Captain Lisa found herself with Dr. Ben Carter and 3 other crew members in what looked like a combat arena. Zidkari warriors waited at the edges, watching. Physical challenge, Ben said quietly. But look at them. They're all standing separately. No teamwork at all. Lisa studied the arena. There were obstacles, weapons, and what looked like dangerous creatures in cages along the walls. They expect us to fight individually. Let's show them something different. Back in the mechanical room, Tony had managed to create a working tool from pieces of broken machines. The thing about humans, he said while working, is that we're really good at making something from nothing. Ryan was mapping the power systems. Tony, if we reroute the energy flow through these 3 panels, we can get everything running again. Jake was assembling spare parts they needed. The Zidkari are watching us through cameras. Look how confused they seem. Indeed, through the walls, they could hear Zidkari voices speaking rapidly. The translator couldn't keep up, but the tone was clearly one of surprise. Hours passed. In each location, the humans worked together in ways the Zidkari had never seen. Tony's group fixed machine after machine, with each person contributing their skills. Amy's group turned the psychological test into a chance to learn about Zidkari technology and language. Lisa's group faced the physical challenges as a team, protecting each other and sharing their strengths. Sub-Commander Quixnell found War Prime Vextheel in the observation center, watching the humans through multiple screens. War Prime, Quixnell said quietly, this is unprecedented. These humans... They are exceeding all expectations. Vexthel SIs never left the screens. It should be impossible. They are weak individually. Their bodies are soft, their strength limited. Yet they accomplish what our strongest warriors cannot. How do they do it? Quixnell asked. They make each other stronger, Vexthel said slowly, as if the words were difficult to speak. When one lacks strength, another provides it. When one lacks knowledge, another teaches. This... cooperation... It multiplies their abilities. On the screen, they watched Tony's group complete the mechanical repairs with time to spare. The humans were laughing and congratulating each other. No Zidkari had ever laughed during a trial of strength. War Prime, Quixnell said hesitantly. What if they succeed in all 3 trials? Vexthel was quiet for a long moment. Then we will have discovered something that threatens everything. We believe about strength and weakness. In Amy's room, Beth had been listening to the Zithkari communications for hours. She finally turned to the others with excitement. "I've figured something out," she whispered. "The way they talk to each other, they never ask for help. Never offer support. Every conversation is about individual achievement or dominance. It's like they don't understand cooperation at all." Amy nodded thoughtfully. "That explains why they're so confused by us. We're showing them something their society never developed." Kate had managed to understand the wall technology and was now controlling it instead of being controlled by it. If they've never seen cooperation before, no wonder they rule through fear and strength alone. As the trials continued, more Zithkari gathered to watch the impossible sight of humans succeeding through teamwork. Warriors who had conquered countless worlds found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about power and strength. War Prime. Vexthal realized that these small, soft humans had brought something into his ship that was more dangerous than any weapon, a completely different way of thinking about what it meant to be strong. The trials were almost over, and the humans were winning in ways the Zithkari had never imagined possible. The trials were over, but War Prime Vexthal could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever succeeded the way these humans had. They had turned individual tests into group achievements. Beth. Turner sat in a small room with Dr. Amy Davis and Kate Sullivan. They had been given time to rest, but Beth was too excited to sleep. She had been studying the Zithkari language patterns for hours. "I think I understand now," Beth said quietly. "Their language has no words for certain concepts. No word for helping someone else. No word for sacrifice for another person. No word for team or together in the way we use them." Amy leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "When they talk about working with others, they only have words that mean using or controlling," Beth explained. "They literally cannot express the idea of making someone else stronger without expecting something back." Kate nodded slowly. "That explains why they kept staring at us during the trials. We were doing things they have no words for." Meanwhile, Jake Harrison found himself face to face with Sub-Commander Crixenol in one of the ship's corridors. The massive alien warrior seemed different somehow, less threatening than before. "Human Jake," Crixenol said through his translator, "I must ask you something. During your trial, why did you give your tools to the other human when you needed them yourself?" Jake thought for a moment. "You mean when I helped Tony? Because he's better with machines than I am. When he succeeds, we all succeed." Crixenol's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. "But you made yourself weaker to make him stronger. This is not logical." "Actually, it made me stronger too," Jake explained. "When Tony fixed the machines faster, it meant I could focus on other problems. We both won." The alien warrior stood silent for a long time, clearly struggling with this idea. In another part of the ship, Captain Lisa Morgan was being escorted by 2 Zithkari guards when alarms suddenly began blaring. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridor. "Hull breach in Section 7, one guard said to the other. "Several warriors trapped." The guards immediately began moving toward the emergency, but they stopped when they saw Lisa following them. "Where are you going, human?" the first guard demanded. "To help," Lisa said simply. "Help? Why would you help Zithkari warriors?" "We are your captors." Lisa looked at him with genuine confusion. "Because people are in danger. That's what you do when people need help." The guards exchanged glances that clearly showed they did not understand her reasoning at all. When they reached the damaged section, Lisa immediately began organizing a rescue effort. She directed Tony Garcia and Ryan Brooks to work on sealing the breach while she and Dr. Ben Carter went to help the trapped aliens, the Zithkari. Warriors watched in amazement as the small humans risked their own lives to save their captors. One of the trapped aliens was badly injured, and Dr. Dan Foster, the ship's medical officer, immediately began treating him. "Why do you heal me?" the wounded Zithkari asked weakly. "I am your enemy." Dr. Foster continued working on the alien's injuries. "You're hurt. I'm a doctor. It's what I do." War Prime Vexthul arrived at the scene to find humans and Zithkari working side by side. He watched as Sam Parker, one of the human engineers, used his own oxygen supply to help a Zithkari warrior who was having trouble breathing. "Sam, you need that oxygen," Kate Sullivan called out. "I'll be fine for a few more minutes," Sam replied, keeping the oxygen mask on the alien. "He needs it more right now." Vexthul pulled Sub-Commander Crixinal aside. "Explain to me what I am seeing." I cannot, War Prime," Crixinal admitted. "The humans risk themselves for us. They make themselves weaker to make us stronger. It defies all logic. And yet it works," Vexthul said quietly. "They saved more lives in the past hour than are wrong." Warriors saved. As the emergency was resolved, something unprecedented happened. A young Zithkari warrior named Vexmore approached another injured warrior and offered to share his medical supplies. The injured warrior stared in shock. "Why would you do this, Vexmore?" I watched the humans," Vexmore said hesitantly. "They became stronger by helping each other. Perhaps we could try." Several other Zithkari heard this exchange. Some looked angry at such weakness, but others seemed curious. Later, Beth Turner was working with communications equipment when she overheard a conversation between two Zithkari guards. She listened carefully, using her growing understanding of their language. "The humans confuse me, brother," one said. "They confuse us all," the other replied. "But did you see how quickly they solved the emergency? Our warriors would have fought over who got to lead the rescue. The humans just worked together." "War Prime Vexthul has forbidden us from speaking of this," the first guard said. "But we are speaking of it," the second pointed out. "Why?" Beth realized she was witnessing something historic. The Zithkari were beginning to question their own society. That evening, Navigator Jill Thompson was sharing her meal rations with a Zithkari guard who had been assigned to watch the humans. The alien had mentioned that their own food supplies were running low in this section of the ship. "You give me your food," the guard said, clearly struggling with the concept. "But now you will be hungry." "I'll be fine," Jill said with a smile. "Besides, you're working hard to keep us safe." "It's only fair." The guard stared at the food, then at Jill. "Fair? You speak of fairness with your captors?" "You're just doing your job," Jill replied, "and everyone deserves to eat." War Prime Vexthul found himself walking the corridors of his ship late into the night cycle. Everywhere he looked, he saw small changes. Zithkari warriors were talking to each other more than usual. Some were even sharing equipment or helping with tasks. These behaviors had been considered weaknesses for thousands of years in Zithkari society. Warriors who helped others were seen as inferior. Strength meant independence, dominance, taking what you needed. But the humans had shown something different. They had shown that helping others could be a form of strength. That cooperation could achieve more than individual effort. For the first time in his life, War Prime Vexthul began to wonder if everything his people believed about strength and weakness might be wrong. 3 days had passed since the emergency rescue, and War Prime Vexthul was watching his empire begin to crack from within. Reports were coming in from across the ship about Zithkari warriors displaying behaviors that had never been seen before. In the lower decks, a maintenance warrior named Zeftal had shared his energy rations with a weaker colleague. In the weapons bay, 2 guards had worked together to solve a technical problem instead of competing to prove individual superiority. Most disturbing of all, several warriors had been heard using new words they had learned from the humans.sub-commander. Crixnell stood before Vexthel in the command center, his massive frame somehow seeming smaller than usual. "War Prime, I must report a serious incident," Crixnell said formally. Warrior Vexmore was injured during training exercises. According to our laws, he should have been left to survive or die on his own. Vexthel's multiple eyes focused sharply. "And I helped him," Crixnell admitted. "I carried him to the medical bay. I stayed with him until he recovered." The silence in the command center was absolute. Other Zithkari officers stood frozen, waiting for Vexthel's response. What Crixnell had done was against every law of their society. It was weakness of the worst kind. "You know the penalty for such weakness," Vexthel said slowly. "Death," Crixnell replied without hesitation. "I know, War Prime. But watching thee, humans—" I began to think that perhaps our understanding of strength is incomplete. War Prime Vexthel looked around at his officers. "The law is clear. Sub-Commander Crixnell has shown weakness that threatens our way of life. Who will carry out the execution?" The officers looked at each other, but no one stepped forward. For the first time in Zithkari history, warriors were hesitating to enforce their own laws. "Perhaps," said Senior Warrior Veleneth carefully, "we should consider whether what Crixnell did was truly weakness." The injured warrior recovered faster and returned to duty sooner because of the help he received. Vexthel stared at his senior officer. "You question our laws?" "I question whether our laws serve the Empire's strength," Veleneth replied. "The humans have shown us results we cannot ignore." Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering section, Chief Tom Miller was working with Science Officer Carol White on a problem that had puzzled Zithkari engineers for years. The ship's power core was inefficient, wasting enormous amounts of energy. "The problem isn't the technology," Tom explained to the gathered Zithkari engineers. "It's the design philosophy. You built this assuming one person would control everything." Carol nodded, pointing to the complex control systems. "But if you distribute the control among multiple operators, each handling what they're best at, the whole system becomes more efficient." A Zithkari engineer named Corks Dunn shook his head. "Impossible. Multiple operators means confusion, conflict. Only one can be in control. Not if they communicate and cooperate," Tom said patiently. "Watch." Tom and Carol demonstrated their idea, working together to optimize different parts of the power system simultaneously. Within minutes, the energy output increased by 30%, while reducing waste by half. The Zithkari engineers stared in amazement. This was a problem their best minds had worked on for decades without success. The humans had solved it in hours through teamwork. "How is this possible?" Corksdown asked quietly. "Because we trust each other," Carol explained. "Tom knows I won't try to take control from him. I know he won't sabotage my work. So we can focus on the problem instead of competing with each other." News of the engineering breakthrough spread quickly through the ship. More Zithkari began approaching the humans, asking questions about cooperation and teamwork. Some tried to work together on their own projects, with mixed but encouraging results. In the medical bay, Dr. Dan Foster was teaching Zithkari medics about collaborative treatment methods. Instead of one doctor trying to handle everything alone, he showed them how specialists could work together on complex cases. "This patient needs surgery, but also has a rare infection," Dr. Foster explained. "In our system, I would handle the surgery while another doctor manages the infection treatment. We communicate constantly and coordinate our efforts." The Zithkari chief medic, Mexther, watched carefully. "But what if the other doctor makes an error that affects your surgery?" "Then we fix it together," Dr. Foster said simply. "Mistakes happen. The goal is to save the patient, not to prove who's better. This concept was revolutionary to the Zithkari. In their society, admitting another's mistake affected your work meant accepting weakness. But the humans showed that acknowledging problems and working together to solve them actually led to better outcomes. War Prime Vexthul received hourly reports about these incidents. His empire, built on individual strength and dominance, was being infected by human ideas of cooperation. Warriors were questioning orders, helping each other, and worst of all, getting better results. War Prime, his intelligence officer reported, the changes are spreading beyond this ship. Other vessels in the fleet are requesting information about human cooperation methods. Some commanders are asking permission to experiment with team-based tactics. Vexthul felt something he had never experienced before, uncertainty about his own power. The Zithkari Empire had conquered half the galaxy by being stronger individually than any other species. But what if strength could be multiplied by working together? Late that night, he found himself in the observation deck where the humans were being held. Through the transparent barrier, he watched them sleeping. Even in rest, they stayed close to each other, providing comfort and security. Captain Lisa Morgan was awake, sitting quietly near the barrier. She noticed him watching and approached. "You're troubled," she said softly. "Your people are destroying everything we believe," Vexthul replied. "Individual strength has made us the most powerful species in the galaxy." "Individual strength is important," Lisa agreed. "But it's not the only kind of strength. Working together doesn't make individuals weaker. It makes the group stronger than any individual could be alone." "But if we change," Vexthul said slowly, "we will no longer be Zithkari. We will become something else." Lisa smiled. "Maybe you'll become something better." Vexthul stared at her for a long moment. Around his ship, Zithkari warriors were experimenting with cooperation, achieving things they had never thought possible. His sub-commander was alive because of mercy, instead of dead because of law. Human ideas were spreading through his fleet, like a virus dot, but unlike any virus he had ever encountered. This one seemed to make his people stronger, not weaker. For the first time in his life, War Prime Vexthul began to wonder if the greatest conquest in Zithkari history might not be conquest of another species, but the conquest of their own limitations. War Prime Vexthul stood in his command center, watching the galaxy burn around him. Not from war, but from revolution. Reports flooded in from every corner of the Zithkari Empire. On dozens of worlds, warriors were refusing to follow the old laws. They were helping each other, working together, questioning orders. War Prime, his communications officer, reported with obvious distress. Fleet Commander Nexvoth is requesting permission to implement cooperative battle tactics in the Outer Rim. Admiral Zektar reports that his warriors are sharing resources instead of competing for them. Production on 7 worlds has increased by 40% because workers are helping each other. Vexthul's multiple eyes closed slowly. The infection was spreading faster than any plague. Worse, it was making his people more effective, not less. The Empire was becoming stronger, even as it fell apart. War Prime, Sub-Commander Crixenhol approached cautiously. "There are reports of 3 fleets abandoning their conquest missions to assist colonies in distress. They say it is more important to help existing citizens than to conquer new ones." "Madness," Vexthul said quietly. But even as he spoke the word, he wondered if it truly was madness. The colonies that received help were now producing more resources and supplying more warriors than they ever had under the old system of neglect and exploitation. Senior warrior Veleneth stepped forward. "War Prime, I must speak freely. The human influence is not weakening our empire. It is transforming it into something we never imagined possible. You would have me abandon thousands of years of tradition? Vexthel demanded. I would have you save our people from a path that leads nowhere, Veleneth replied boldly. We have conquered half the galaxy through strength alone. But the humans show us how to build something greater than conquest. They show us how to create, instead of just take. In the detention area, Captain Lisa Morgan was meeting with her senior staff. The humans had been watching the changes in the Zivkari with growing amazement and concern. The Empire is falling apart, Jake Harrison observed. Some ships are helping colonies. Others are still following the old conquest model. They're fighting each other now. Dr. Ben Carter nodded grimly. We may have started something we can't control. The Zivkari society wasn't built for rapid change like this. Beth Turner looked up from her language studies. I've been monitoring their communications. The word cooperation has spread through their entire fleet. But they don't have social structures to handle it. It's like trying to run new software on old hardware. Captain Morgan stood quietly for a moment, thinking. Maybe it's time we offered them a different option. Hours later, Vexthel received an unexpected message. The humans were requesting a formal meeting, not as prisoners and captors, but as equals seeking to discuss the future. The meeting took place in the ship's main conference room. Vexthel sat across from Captain Morgan, with representatives from both species present. The tension was obvious, but so was the mutual respect that had developed over the past weeks. War Prime Vexthel, Lisa began formally. We propose something that has never existed in galactic history. Not conquest, not surrender, but partnership. Partnership? Vexthel's voice carried confusion and interest. An alliance between our peoples based on mutual benefit and respect, Jake explained. The Zivkari bring strength, technology, and vast resources. Humans bring cooperation strategies, innovation methods, and organizational skills. Dr. Ben Carter leaned forward. Your people are already changing, War Prime. You can either guide the change constructively, or watch your empire tear itself apart as old and new ways clash. Vexthel considered this. Around the galaxy, his fleets were reporting unprecedented success where cooperation was being implemented, and chaos where old and new methods conflicted. What would this partnership involve? He asked carefully. Beth Turner opened her notes. Cultural exchange programs. Zithkari warriors learning human teamwork methods. Humans learning Zithkari strength and discipline. Joint operations where both species contribute their strengths. Your technology could be enhanced by cooperative design principles, Kate Sullivan added. Our ship designs could benefit from Zithkari durability and power. Sub-Commander Crixenel spoke up suddenly. War Prime, I have seen the results of human methods firsthand. When my warriors began working together instead of competing, their effectiveness doubled. When they began helping instead of dominating, loyalty increased dramatically. Vexthel looked around the room at his officers. He saw agreement in their eyes, even from those who had initially opposed any change. There is a problem, Vexthel said slowly. If the Zivkari Empire becomes something different, other species may see it as weakness. They may attack while we are changing. Lisa smiled. That's why you need allies, not subjects. Partners who choose to work with you because it benefits everyone. Over the following days, the first Human-Zithkari Cooperation Treaty was negotiated. It was unlike any document in galactic history. Instead of terms of surrender or domination, it outlined principles of mutual respect, shared resources, and combined strengths. The treaty was signed in a ceremony, broadcast to both the human colony worlds and the Zithkari Empire. Warriors and civilians watched as two species that should have been enemies became partners instead. Within weeks, the effects were dramatic. Zithkari fleets began operating with human advisors. achieving military objectives with minimal casualties and maximum efficiency. Human colonies received Zithkari protection and access to advanced technology, but the most surprising result came from an unexpected source. Other species throughout the galaxy began sending diplomatic messages, requesting meetings with the new human Zithkari coalition. The Velkari Trade Federation wanted to discuss economic partnerships. The Namek Scientific Union requested technology sharing agreements. Even some of the species that had been conquered by the Zithkari approached cautiously, asking about this new way of coexistence. 6 months later, War Prime Vexthil stood on the bridge of a new type of ship. It was designed by both human and Zithkari engineers working together, more powerful and efficient than anything either species could have built alone. Beside him stood Jake Harrison, now serving as the human military liaison to the coalition. They watched as a former Zithkari enemy fleet approached under diplomatic flags. "They want to learn about cooperation," Jake observed. "They want to survive," Vexthil corrected. "The galaxy is changing. Species that cannot adapt to this new way will be left behind," Jake nodded. Hard to believe it all started with a simple first contact. Vexthil's multiple eyes focused on the approaching ships. "Your people did not just contact us, Jake Harrison. You conquered us more completely than we ever conquered anyone else. You conquered our minds and hearts. We just showed you what friendship looks like," Jake replied with a smile dot as the former enemy ships docked peacefully and their representatives came aboard to learn about the impossible alliance between the galaxy's strongest species and its newest members. Vexthil realized that the humans had been right from the beginning. True strength was not about dominance. It was about building something greater together than anyone could achieve alone. The strongest species in the galaxy had encountered humans, and nothing would ever be the same.